So, for anybody that's listened to the show before, you've heard me gripe and complain about the Missouri State Athletic Commission. And one of the things Nick Gage is known for is coming through the crowd. So I was hoping they were going to get some leadway with that. They didn't. I talked to Gage before he went out there, and he's like, no, they're not going to let me go through the crowd. So my ideal is to kind of give this the most authentic way to have Gage here and come off pay-per-view like, okay, yeah, like this is a big fight feel. Like Gage, like this isn't going to be like a watered-down product. Is, okay, we're going to get all 6 people that are here that know Gage, and we're going to get them rowdy, and we're going to put them all in the corner there when he comes out.
By the ramp, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And needless to say, we got a little rowdy. We pushed the barricade. We scared Kyle from Charleston.
I could hear the F words from backstage.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. And I was like, I just listened. I was like, what are they saying? Are they saying that? I remember telling Jason. Jason was like, so guess who I got for the main? Who? Nick Gage. And I know who Nick Gage is.
Right.
So I'm like, can you use Nick Gage in the main event? Like, is that going to be okay? And he said, we'll just put a disclaimer and say, if you have sensitive ears, turn away.
Yeah. And then, like I said, I went out there to rally it up.
Yeah, because I remember hearing that, and I'm like, what's going on out there? And they were just like, oh, Big Lee's out there with a group fucking going crazy. I'm like, that doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, and then, like I said, that was one of the things, like, I watched a clip of, and once again, the commentary dropped the ball on.
I don't even remember who the commentary was, other than there was a gentleman that had just started.
There was a guy in a mask and Sarah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Which, like, personally, I felt like, since I was one of the 5 people that knew who Gage was, it probably would have made more sense to put someone like me on the commentary.
Yeah, you should have just jumped up there. Yeah, you should have just jumped up there.
Well, I'm not in that role of power anymore.
I think you have, what is it called? You're grandfathered in. You just do what you want.
So I was just like, it's not my battle anymore.
Yeah.
So you're written out. Now you're hanging out with Billy Hills at production on top. And
yeah, so the dumbest thing that I did, it was by accident completely. After the beatdown where, they smashed my leg,
right.
They wrote me out. That night, myself and Maria and Tanner, we go to Wings. We're going to get dinner after the fact. And Billy and Sarah are going to meet us there. So we sit down, and we're waiting for them. This group comes in, and they're just staring daggers at me the entire time. And I'm like, why are they staring at me? And then I look closer, I'm like, oh, they're CCW fans. I can tell. I saw them at the show. And then Billy walks in and sits with me and eats, and I'm like, they're looking over at us, and I'm like, fuck kayfabe. That old bitch.
Then you actually said that at the beginning of the show. I don't know if you remember this.
I kind of do. Everything's a blur to me generally.
When they had the issue with the seating.
Oh yeah, because I had to go out there and
it was me and you.
Me and you went out there and
I said to you as a joke, I was like, "Well, kayfabe's dead," and you just yell it out on the mic.
On the mic and realized it, and then I apologized. But you know what? That's just Shannon's charm. Everybody knows Shannon. He's crazy.
So that kind of gets us up to date here. I've got a few questions.
Oh, yes. I love questions.
Yes.
I love questions. Thank you to anyone that actually asked a question, because I was scared. I was going to start asking people, hey, can you just go ask a question so I don't look like the worst guest he's ever had?
So you actually got the most questions.
When you pitched to me to be on the show, and I was like, absolutely, I've wanted to do it. And you gave me that first poster that just said, guest Shannon Young. I said, put Mr. 100 on there just so...
Yeah, he really did.
Some people know who the fuck I am.
He puts out this post where, he's taking a break, he's separating himself from everything. And then I sent him the thing, and I'm like, hey, I'm going to put this out. Does this work for you? He's like, you should put Mr. 100. I'm thinking, well, wait, you told me, you just put that whole post out saying, you're going to get away from this, and then now you want me to make sure you label the poster with it.
Yeah, because nobody gives a shit about Shannon Young. They just want Mr. 100. I get it. I get it.
So,
shout out to Podzilla, 1985.
Yeah, the show that I was only allowed one episode and they wouldn't let me back.
I wanted to let you back. I still want you back. In fact, I think we should, even if it's just me and you at some point, because I can remote in, literally do shows whenever we want.
Yep.
At the time, so when Podzilla 1985 first started, it was the Wild Wild West. We said whatever we wanted. But then when we really started getting successful and we got a lot of listener base, we decided to tone it down. And Big Lee is not very tonable. So we were trying to avoid guests that were going to be, curse, say offensive things. But now we're back to the point where, since COVID and all that, we don't care. We live to entertain ourselves. That's our new motto. So, yeah, we'll bring you back on. Well, if I ever go back.
I was barred from there. Just like my good, close personal friend, Roger.
Oh, Roger Mathis?
Roger Matthias.
He wasn't barred from there. We just don't want him.
I mean, y'all did an episode with him, and y'all decided to magically lose it.
I think for his career in CCW, that was probably for the best.
I mean, it seemed like CCW booking kind of held him back from what he should have been.
All I'll say about Roger Mathis, because I like Roger.
Mm-hmm.
I do. He and I do not agree politically, and we've argued about it before. I'm not afraid of Roger Mathis, like a lot of people are. And that's not to say that he can't kick my ass, because I 100% believe he can kick my ass. But, like, why be afraid of somebody? If they're going to kick your ass, they're going to kick your ass. Whatever. Mathis, the last thing I remember about Roger was me telling him, Jason's got this idea for us where I'm going to cost you your title opportunities. I'm going to basically screw you over again and again. And that's going to lead to, from what I've understood, that he was originally in the Cash Borden role. That was going to be Roger. But Roger balked at the idea. When I told him this, he actually looked offended and was like, why am I putting up with this carny, bullshit?
Right.
And then he never came back.
Well, I mean, I have to agree with that to an extent, because it's like, when I see Roger, I see a top tier talent. I see a guy, to me, him and Billy both should have been CCW heavyweight champion.
I agree with that. Whenever we went to Stride for the first time in Illinois, Roger was in a group called, what the hell were they called? I'm sorry, Red Daniels, because he's in that group too. It was Red Daniels, Roger, and then Jake Capone. And I remember seeing, it was like the first show we went to in Stride, because we went to go see Billy.
Right.
Because we love Billy and Sarah, and we wanted to, and Dalton and Asa had been going over there for a while. And then a lot of guys from Stride have come over to CCW, and I love those guys. I love Stride. But I remember seeing Roger for the first time, and I said to Asa and Dalton, I'm like, that's a fucking star right there. Mm-hmm. That dude is going
Roger's money.
He's going to be big. He was always one of my top picks for, like, if we could book someone over here. In fact, if you go back to the old Chaos episodes, I dedicated an entire opening to putting him over. I put a clip montage of him to his music beating the shit out of people because I thought he was so good. What I think happened to Roger was just his mentality and his attitude got the better of him. And I'm a guy that I very much, respect to me is more important than anything. Uh-huh. Respect is the name of the game for me. You and I have even gotten into it before, because there was a time when I felt like you had disrespected my friend, and I remember people seeing us at a show, and we would like talk to each other, and they were like, "Oh, how'd that go?" Because they were afraid you and I were gonna like beat each other up. Mm-hmm. And it's like, no, it's, as far as I was concerned, it was buried at that point. You and I'd like to think we're friends now, yeah. and not a big deal. So respect is the number one thing for me, and I felt like Roger kind of disrespected CCW in a lot of ways. So I know he's amazing talent, but at the same time, respect is big for me. Mm-hmm. If that gets me in trouble, it'll probably get me in trouble. And again, I want to put over that Roger is an amazing talent, but I'm also not going to lie. Like, his attitude bothered me. It just did. I don't think anyone's bigger than the business. But there's also people that would look at me and say, and I think Jeff Odell said it in one of the promos when I kicked him out, and we had to rush the storyline because Lane was getting his surgery, so Jeff became GM much, much quicker. He was supposed to be gone for a while, right? And they rushed it the same night. But Jeff asked me, he's like, "How long have you been in the business? A month?" And so when I say something like that out loud of, well, I don't know, Roger's attitude kind of bothered me, I'm sure there's a million people that just go, who the fuck are you to say that? How long have you been in the business? And like, cool, if that's what you think, and if you disagree with me, that's fine. That's just my personal perspective. Would I welcome Roger back if he were to come back to CCW? Of course, I'd shake his hand backstage, and I would work with him as best I can. Because I know he and I don't agree on a lot of things, but I like to think we're still friends.
Right.
Just because politically, and we've argued about many, many things. But at the same time, if someone's being shitty, they're being shitty. I will call that out. And I expect someone to call me out if I'm being shitty, so.
Why do you think Billy Hills hasn't been the champion?
I can't tell you. Billy Hills is also money. And Billy's a good friend of mine. He is so talented. He's a good wrestler. He's a best on the microphone, one of the best. He has that, like Roger, he just has that aura of that guy's a star. I know he's had injuries he's dealt with. That has been a major thing. Why they always put Billy in groups and stuff like that when he's a breakout star. He would come out, he'd flip the tables. He got so much attention. I can't tell you. I can't tell you. There's a lot of guys that I've always wondered why weren't they champion. I don't know why it took so long to make Justin Smart a champion. Justin is one of the best wrestlers I've ever seen. He's a workhorse. He's super over with that crowd. Why it took him that long to even be a tag champion, I don't know. But those are not decisions that I make. Jason makes the call, and Jason has run it successfully. So I don't want to tell Jason how to book, because that's not my job.
Because it just seems like I said, both of those guys should have been heavyweight champions. The two of them together, the Southern Discomfort, that should have been a tag champion.
I agree. The problem with them as a tag team is that they're both so good individually. Mm-hmm. It's like Jackson and Otis. You'd hate to put them in a team together, because Billy and Roger separately could be champion and believable champions. Billy, because he's such an old school feel. I remember the first show I went to, and Farmer Billy Hills comes out, and he had like the rebel flag. I remember I actually told Allie and Tanner, I was like, oh, I get it. He's the redneck, and look, He's a rebel. But he won me over so quickly, where I was like, that dude. In fact, that's when we started him and Sarah with the whole, she's your sister, and stuff like that, which drove them nuts, and I loved it. But yeah, you hate to see them in a tag team, because they would be champions on their own. Why they weren't champions?
I just think you see
shrug emoji.
You see two top talents like that. I think it sells out. I think it sells out a building. I think it easily sell out a 300 cap room with those two together, just because it's when I think of it, and way I look at business now, how other companies, quote unquote more successful indie companies do it. They have these top tier teams, they're putting together two guys that could be champions on their own and running with that. So you could start booking these bigger indie teams, or these teams from that are getting released that are now going to start taking indie bookings. You can't tell me how interesting would it be your main event be Roger and Billy versus AOP. I saw they just got released.
Yeah.
To me that's a hoss fight and a half.
It is, but at the same time, I could see Roger going against any number of. I mean, you could put, and they did. He put Roger against Abyss.
Yep.
They had their thing going. Roger was so good in any role they put him in, and he was such a believable ass kicker, because he was an ass kicker. Again, I just think that when you put them together, it's almost a shame. And for the longest time, who I feel really bad for in CCW? Jackson. Because I have heard the accusations for so long that, Jackson Crowley is champion. He's such a big deal because he's Jason's good friend. Mm-hmm. And I never thought that personally. Hand to God. I wondered sometimes, why, man, they're really pushing Jackson so hard. That's because Jackson's amazing. Jackson is such a top tier talent. The way he draws that crowd in, there's not a lot of people that can do it, and he does it quietly. He doesn't cut a lot of promos. It's just his aura. It's the way he moves. It's the way he wrestles. He is so good at that character that he doesn't even really need the promotion. But there's a reason that these guys are put in the positions they're in. It's because they're good.
Let me pitch you this match idea.
And go for it.
And I'm going to guarantee it's going to make you smile and happy.
Okay.
Main event.
I hope so, because I'm not happy.
Main event. Southern Discomfort. Roger Mathias. Billy Hills. Against the Mega Brothers.
Okay, I smiled. You ain't lying.
How happy does that make you?
I love Chris Slammer to death.
Uh-huh.
Chris Slammer is one of the nicest guys I've ever met, and he's relatively new to all this and has such a desire to learn. He's always first one there. He's always putting stuff up, taking stuff down. He's asking questions constantly. There's no one, I think, that I've met that has wanted to learn more than Chris Slammer. And then there's Dalton.
Yeah, there's Dalton.
I love Dalton. Dalton is one of my best friends. I feel bad because I ignored Dalton for the past month and a half completely. Only because seeing him reminds me too much of Allie, because they're still friends.
And that's what they look like.
Oh, hell no. I was never sexually attracted to Allie. No, I mean Dalton. Sorry. Anyway. Also, when I did ring announcing in Stride once.
Uh-huh.
And when I went down there and I did ring announcing for him, I remember I announced Mathis coming out. And I called him Matthias. And everyone looked at me funny. They're like, it's Mathis in Illinois. And I'm like, well, it's Matthias in Missouri, and that sounds better. Matthias versus Roger Mathis.
I remember first time meeting Roger. We went to go eat after the Stride show. And he shook my hand at the table, and he said, My name's Roger. Both work and shoot. And it took me a second to think, wait, and I was like,
The thing about Roger, because I don't want anyone to think that I absolutely like hate or think he's a disrespectful shit. He's not. Mm-hmm. There was just one incident where, I felt like it was insulting.
Yeah.
But anytime I've ever been around Roger, he has always been incredibly nice and incredibly respectful to me. I remember sitting with him. Allie and I sat with him and Billy after one of the shows, and me and him we all talked for like 30, 40 minutes, and it was great. Mm-hmm. So, if I can avoid talking about politics with Roger, everything's good.
So, with me and I love Roger to death. I really do. Me and him do not see eye to eye on a lot of politics.
Right.
But
you can separate that a lot of time.
With me, I grew up in an area where I don't necessarily have the same political beliefs as everybody else. Mm-hmm. So, I've learned, between that and some other things in life, how to draw a line here. And, like I said, I love Roger. Roger's, to me, he's, super great talent. He's a really nice dude. We can talk about politics, but we don't, if we disagree, we don't get into, name calling or anything like that. It's just, we agree to disagree.
Agree to disagree,
yeah.
Well, I think the problem with doing that in person versus doing that, online is when people get online, it stops being cordial and civil real quick. Uh-huh. Because you can hide behind a computer, because you can hide behind a keyboard. So it's easier to get in arguments and fights because there's, no repercussions. If someone, and I'm not saying anyone has disrespected Roger, because I don't think I've ever seen anyone disrespect Roger, online, but if...
Probably because they know Roger will go to their house.
Well, I was going to say, if you're online and you're in an argument with Roger, and you call him a name or something, he'll have to track you down or whatever.
Right.
But if you see Roger in person and you call him a name, he's going to kick your ass. So you don't do it. The internet has created, and I'm saying, not everyone that's ever been in an argument with Roger online is that way, because I don't agree with a lot of what Roger says online. I don't agree with his views. But it's easy. The internet has created such a false sense of security due to anonymity, mm-hmm. and people say a lot more shit online than they would in person. That's
exactly.
Yeah.
That's kind of the way I feel with a few things going on in the whole, get off a tangent here. I know we said 30 minutes ago we was going to start this question.
Being soft is a sin. That's all I'll say.
Well, here's the thing. We're in this era of cancel culture.
Yeah.
God,
I hope they don't go back and listen to my old shows.
Anybody that talks to me face to face is probably man, they let this guy have a podcast.
Cancel that guy.
Right. So here's the thing. To me, it's I'm a firm believer of everybody has equal rights. Everybody deserves equality. Believe what you believe what you want to believe. That's fine. Just treat everybody equally with respect. That's fine. Now, with that being said,
I believe it to a point.
I know personally, my personal interest, hobbies, things like that, is more on the extreme side. Death metal, hardcore, deathmatch wrestling,
Ultra porn.
Yes.
Yeah.
Fill in the blank. But...
Well, they filled them.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways, so, with stuff like that, it's I know some of the stuff, I do, especially, one of the big is with Ken. It took Ken forever, and I still don't think he fully does, believe and trust in when I tell him things, or how business, or how to do things, because he has in his mindset that, what he sees, on the social media of me promoting fights, bands, things of that nature, he thinks he doesn't quite grasp the concept okay, wait, this is his guy's interest, but when it comes down to business, this is, multi-business experience, MBA. So I think, and it's people have trouble drawing that line here.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of the problem with society. It's you've got the cancel culture of if you don't like it, you want it canceled. And then you've got, in essence, what I heard somebody call the other day, the pussy culture, where everybody's too sensitive, too soft. And I think, honestly, I think there's a big, if you see the little the little circle diagram, I can see that.
I have a lot of unpopular opinions when it comes to this, because there was a guy, I think his name was Richard Spencer, I forget at this point, but he was he's a Nazi. He's basically a Nazi. And he was promoting his hateful speech and all that, and someone punched him in the face. And everybody celebrated that, and I kind of didn't like it. I'm like, he's using words and you're using fists. I think cancel culture is fine in certain cases, like that. Like I don't want him saying those things, but he also has a right to say them because this is America. Any dumbass person can say any dumbass thing they want to a degree, to a spot. When it comes to cancel culture, there are things that I think should be regulated. And I know that sounds weird because I also believe it's everything or nothing. But like when I see shit like, the Westboro Baptist Church going to soldiers' funerals and protesting gays and stuff like that, I don't think that's right. That shouldn't be legal. But if somebody wants to make an off-color joke or remark, they should be able to make that, and we should choose whether or not we listen to it and tune into it. Like Jim Ross got in trouble for making that joke about is her name Anna Jay, I think. It was at the AEW pay-per-view. He said, "Did she just have a wardrobe malfunction, or is that just wishful thinking?" And then everybody's like, "Cancel JR" because he said that. And it's like, until his apology was shit, that turned me on it. But just what he said, it's like, yeah, it's stupid, but like, I'm not foaming at the mouth.
Just on that example, there's probably a sizable demographic of that audience that was watching that was hoping for that.
Every time. It's like going to a NASCAR show and hoping that the cars wreck.
Right.
It's terrible, but you do it. You drive by car wrecks because you want to see it. Cancel culture to me, when it comes to PC, I remember a story about a girl who got in a car wreck, and she was like 19. She was super young. She got in a car wreck. She drove off because she was all upset. She got in a car wreck. It was a terrible wreck. She died. People started sending her family pictures from the car wreck of her. Apparently, like, her head was, like, separated halfway through. And they were sending their family these pictures of their dead daughter, almost decapitated. And, like, should we allow people to say that because it is open and free? Like, that they have the right to say these things and to show these things? Is that covered by freedom? Like, technically, yes, but, like, I guess I hope people wouldn't be shitty like that.
I've lost faith in humanity, first off.
2020 has been the best, has been the best example of humanity for me, of the worst things in humanity.
It's like the movie Idiocracy is coming to real life.
Has been for a while.
But, like, for me, it's like, I agree with what you said. Like, there, people that says America, you have the right to say whatever you want. But, like, when I look at instances of, like, the guy, like, was talking, the Nazi dude.
Yeah.
And, he had the right to say it. But I think the problem with society is, there's going to be consequences for when you do things, and you say things, and you aggravate people, and you push people to a limit, and you say things such to an extreme that you're trying to insinuate violence. Because in essence, when you're that Nazi and you're trying to say like your white race is better than everyone else's, you're basically, to me, it's almost like you're trying to attack them.
You're instigating.
Yeah,
but
you're calling for violence.
My
just like the thing with like you said with the girl in the car wreck. Like, honestly, like, I think that personally, like, if you're that kind of person and you're sending pictures of a decapitated daughter to their parents, I think the parents should go, bash your head in.
I agree with that, but I'm a violent person. But
so am I.
My problem with it though, and like, I say things that can be controversial, not because I always believe in it, but because I think it needs to be said.
Right.
So in a case like the Nazi, he's saying what he believes.
Right.
Which offends a certain demographic. Normal people.
Right.
Sane people.
People with common sense.
People with common sense who aren't pieces of shit Nazis.
Right.
But you could also say that like the Black Lives Matter movement has offended this group of people, of idiots. The people that the people that can't say Black Lives Matter, that say all lives matter, the people that don't get it.
See, to me, like,
so if they go to these Black Lives Matter protests and they hit a protester, is it the same thing? Just because you agree as a person, as a human being, with what one person says versus the other, isn't it their right to say it no matter what they say?
I think like you have to be able to draw that line and divide it of saying like, okay, the Nazi is
clearly in the wrong.
Yeah, I mean, it's clearly in the wrong because they're saying like their race is better than everyone else's.
Right.
When I look at Black Lives Matter, first thing I have to do is I separate Black Lives Matter, the corporation, all that, the corporate behind it and stuff like that,
from the real movement,
from the actual like people, like the actual movement, like you said,
right.
Like the people that are struggling, the people that are getting killed by the police, things
right.
of that nature. Like I have to separate that.
Yeah.
So like I have no problem standing by Black Lives Matter,
Same.
The movement.
Yeah.
The corporate part, no, it's a cash grab. Just like with anything else in the world, it gets politics involved with it. And to me, honestly, I think the biggest problem with this, which is we'll wrap this up here and get to the question.
We promise. We promise.
Yeah, I think the downfall of America is going to be the two-party system.
I've hated Jesse Ventura, to bring it back to wrestling, said that a two-party system is ridiculous. And he's absolutely right. There's no way you can get so many different ideas and so many beliefs in a two-party system.
Right.
But back to the Black Lives Matter thing, I am a big supporter of Black Lives Matter. I grew up in a very urban area. I don't want to be that guy. Most of my friends were black growing up. So I have seen, from my point of view of a white dude, the trouble that they got into that I didn't get into. So I'm not saying I understand what they go through, but I had an idea before, before it became so popular and easy to monetize. But it's hard to decide. It's hard to say who gets to decide what's right and what's wrong when it's said. I agree that the Nazi I don't think he should be allowed to say it because it is just hateful rhetoric. But legally, under the Constitution and all that, he does have a right to say that. And if it's not him saying that, it could be someone else saying something else. There was a time when black people didn't have the right to vote. There was a time when women didn't have the right to vote. And the people that spoke out against it were the bad guys.
Right.
They weren't, but people see it. And I'm not saying the Nazi are the good guys. They're clearly not. It's just I don't want to live in a society where someone like Donald Trump could decide, where we would say, well, outlaw the Nazi. He can't say that because that's not right. Somebody in power like Donald Trump could use that against Black Lives Matter and say, well, that's inspiring hate and violence, so we're going to eliminate that. You can't do that. Like, in cases like that, sometimes it has to be all or nothing.
It's even proven it's only like 7% of these protests end in violence.
Unless you watch the news, and then they show that shit.
And then they've already proven that the cops are in on it, and they're destroying their vehicles.
Well, yeah, and Trump is sending out federal agents, army, some kind of soldiers out to detain people unlawfully. It's terrible. It's a war zone out there, and I have friends who still support Donald Trump. And I don't know how we're still friends because I tear them apart every Thursday on Podzilla After Dark. I don't know how we still get along.
See, to me, it's like my hatred of Donald Trump came way before he was even a political. It was like because I felt like he disrespected the wrestling business, and that always stuck with me.
I just always thought he was a piece of shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is it's like if you look at Donald Trump didn't get the Democrat nomination, so then he decided to switch parties to get the Republican nomination. And to that being said, it's like I look at life and a lot of things. It's like I don't believe all Republicans are racist. I don't believe all Democrats are
good.
Yeah, socialist snowflakes.
Yeah.
And it's one of the things is like talking with my friends about it, and that's their go-to is like, oh, well you're anti-Trump, so that means you're pro-Biden. No, it doesn't. It means I don't like this guy. I'm not saying this guy is better. I'm just saying I don't like this guy.
Lesser of two evils.
Yeah.
Everyone always, and we used to have that argument a lot on the show because I would always go pretty hard on Trump supporters. And I would always say Republicans. And, I had friends who at the time were Republicans. They're like, not all Republicans are like Donald Trump. And I would tell them like, okay, but this is the party of Trump now. This is not the Republican Party anymore. This is the party of Trump. It's the cult of Trump. So if you support that, then you're part of the problem. All Republicans, all Democrats, all people with common sense, I think, should rise up against him. I would have voted for John Kasich in the 2016 election over Hillary Clinton. I voted for Hillary because I didn't want Donald Trump to win.
Right.
But I would have voted for a Republican. I would have voted for Kasich if he was an option. And now Kasich is supporting Joe Biden. So it's like when Republicans are coming out to support the Democratic presidential nominee, it makes you. Do you not wonder what the hell's going on here? But it's like talking to a fucking wall.
One of my favorite things to do is a couple years ago, when Stormy Daniels came to the strip club.
I wanted to meet her so bad.
I did.
Yeah.
So Stormy Daniels came out to the local strip club out here at Pony. Shout out to the homie Mikey Cox out there listening to this, big supporter of the podcast.
Of course, his last name's Cox.
Yep.
Yeah.
He took care of me when I went out there, and he hooked me up with one of the hats they were giving away. He saved me one, and it says "Make America Great Again" at the pony clubs. And it's always one of my favorite things to wear out when I go to the Cracker Barrel on Sundays because I'll get these people.
So they look at you at first, they go, all right, and then they look more and go, ugh.
I've literally had people standing in line while I'm waiting to pay come up to me and they say, hey, like, I've witnessed this. My buddy Johnny Thurman, shout out to Johnny Thurman.
I know Johnny Thurman. What's up, Johnny?
What's up, Johnny? We'll hopefully have him on the guest here or on the podcast as a guest soon.
Good guy.
But we're literally standing in line and like this lady comes up to me, taps me on the shoulder. and says, "Hey, I'm glad to see that the youth is on the right side of history now." And like we'll just start laughing, and the cashier lady does too because she sees the hat, and all the old lady sees is the "Make America Great Again," but she don't see about the strip club at it.
Right.
So, with that being said, we're finally wrapping.
Let's get to the questions because I'm losing my voice. We talk so much.
Okay, where do you want to start first? Let's see here if I can read my handwriting here.
Anywhere. I answer all questions.
This one for last because this is going to lead into something.
I'll try not to ramble.
I mean, that's what I do the whole podcast, so it's fine. So, start out with an easy one here. Noah Hudson wants to know, what's your favorite Jolly Rancher flavor?
Green. No, blue raspberry. Yeah, blue raspberry. Followed by green. So blue and green. The best lightsaber colors.
Yeah, I don't know anything about too much of Star Wars. Sorry.
Oh, I'll forgive you.
It's okay. Like, I literally work my shoot job. You know, I work for an ISP in tech support. So, like, everybody there's these big Star Wars fans, and I'm like, I got no idea.
Sorry, that's how I'm with Harry Potter. I've never dated a girl that didn't like Harry Potter, and then they look at me and I go, "What's a Muggle?" I don't know what you're talking about.
So someone challenged me to watch all the movies at least once, and this was probably about a year ago. I watched them, didn't like them.
Yeah.
But I will say about the Star Wars, I do think the little baby Yoda thing's cute.
Shit. So we when that was coming out, I pre-ordered one of those figures for Allie at GameStop. Allie and I broke up, and then they called me and they're like, "Hey, your baby Yoda's in," and I said, "Just sell it. Just fucking throw my money away. I don't care."
So, thing I want to put out, you commented on the Twitter post at Big Lee's World on Twitter.
Yeah.
You posted a photo. No one asked. You said someone asked about this photo. No one asked about the photo. So I guess I'll go ahead and ask you about the photo.
There is no reason to ask about that photo. That was a joke. It was just a photo of me and my friend Steven. Lindsay was throwing an anime watch party, and I went because I was waiting to hear back from my not girlfriend, I guess. I hate to say. And I was nervous, and I have anxiety anyway, and she was not returning my texts. So I'm like, I got to get out of my apartment because I feel like I'm going to go crazy. And I went down there, and we took that picture, and I sent it to Steven's girlfriend. And it's like, why aren't you here? Because everyone just kind of thinks Steven and I are a gay couple, maybe. And who knows? If they break up, maybe we will be. I ain't doing anything else. He's a very handsome boy, but that's all. Answer your question.
I was kind of waiting for another, like, the wrap of the story there. And you're just like, oh, that's all. It's like, oh, okay.
Yeah, no, that's all.
All right, so Brian Rose asked about how did you find out about Castlevania, and why are you a fan?
I love Castlevania. I started with Castlevania 1 on Nintendo. It was just something I rented. Because anyone that knows me, everyone assumes I love video games. I hate video games. I play them, but I hate video games. I don't like them at all. I work in a video game store, but I hate video games. I love movies. Movies have always been my passion. I'm a screenwriter at heart. That's what I want to do.
What's your favorite?
Favorite movie? My favorite movie of all time is Ghostbusters. Ghostbusters. If I have a top 5, it's Ghostbusters, The Thing, American Werewolf in London, and then it gets difficult after that. But I love horror. That's the big thing, is I love horror movies. They're my favorite movies. So
with an H or a W?
Both. Yes.
Fair enough.
With an H mostly. Castlevania, when I first saw it, it was unlike anything I'd ever seen before. It was basically the old Universal horror monsters in a video game. You fight Dracula, you fight Frankenstein's monster, and stuff like that. So I rented the first one from when I was a kid, and I fell in love with it. The art direction, the music is incredible. If you've ever listened to a Castlevania soundtrack, you have to. I've played every game in the series. I've watched the entire anime. I'm a Castlevania nerd. That's like top 5 video game series of all time for sure.
Paul Hester wants to know, why don't you think I hate you enough?
Oh,
I'm assuming he's asking why you think he don't hate you, or I don't hate you. Or
well, he doesn't hate me enough because Paul's a good guy, but Paul likes to jump in on my posts and start shit. And sometimes I let it go, and sometimes I get genuinely irritated with it. But I would say, Paul, the reason I don't think you hate me enough is because you've never tried to stab me. So until you try to stab me, get on my level, son.
Did you have his hot peanuts backstage?
I did not.
Oh, man, you would hate him if you had those.
I don't think I did, actually. I know Austin talked me into eating something once that was hot, and I don't remember what it is.
I think it was a hot peanut.
I didn't enjoy it. Let's put it that way. I do not like hot penis in my mouth.
Because I remember he did the same thing to me. Because I forgot, I came in from outside, and he's like, "Here, try this." I'm like, "Huh? Okay." Justin Penrod, does it hurt you that I don't see you as a heel?
Oh, I think I saw this one. It's like, no matter how bad you are, I'll never see you as a bad guy or something like that. So it's, the funny thing about Justin Penrod and I is that it started bad because he either had misheard something I had said at a show, or someone told him something I had said at a show when I wasn't in the ring, and what they thought they heard was something really bad about mentally challenged people. And he didn't like that because he obviously is a supporter of that, and you don't talk about those guys. Well, I think it was finally Brandon Barbwire that talked to him and convinced him that what was said was not that, because anyone that knows me knows that from my first job I have worked with mentally challenged people and special needs people and love and befriend and have nothing but respect for them. I would never say anything so terrible. So we got off on the wrong foot originally. I think he's a great guy. Him and his brother both. I love him. One of the problems I had, and I went to Billy with this because he had the same problem, was that no matter how much of a bad guy you are, if you are personable and if you are charming, then there will be people that cheer you no matter what. So when I was a heel manager in CCW, I still had lots of fans that cheered me when I came out. And there's nothing I could do to turn them against me. Like,
I mean, I think you gotta look at 21st century. Like, people are like who they like.
Right.
You go back, like, look at Austin. Austin was never a true face till, like, God, like, way further down the line. Like, he was just a heel that got over with the fans.
Because they were really getting into that anti-establishment era.
And then you look at, even like in the 80s, you got Pete Flair.
Right.
Flair was the heel, but people love Flair. Right.
Because I think, and I don't want to say this about me because I don't believe it, but more about Billy, when you're good enough, people see through the gimmick and they like the performer.
Well, yeah.
And if people feel that way about me, thank you, because that means a lot to me. But I think Billy was so good at what he did, and like Flair and those guys, that there was a respect that you just couldn't hide anymore.
Well, yeah, and I think that's going back to the merch deal. I think it's one of those things to where it's like, okay, like people separate. It's like show on, show off.
Right.
Like, hey, we appreciate your work, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of what you can do with it.
So it doesn't offend me, by the way. And if I do ever come back, and I come back as a good guy, then hopefully you still like me.
Robert Young wants to know, how did it change you going from a fan to being part of the business?
First off, it's so weird to think of myself as part of the business. I forget who it was that asked me a couple of months ago when we were talking about the angles and stuff like that, and they were just like, because the way I spoke about it was like someone who wasn't involved, and they were just like, knock that off. You're a part of this. Like, you're in the business. You've been in the business now for a couple of years, and I never thought of it that way. I always felt like an outsider looking in, and I still do for a big part of it. As to his question, it's more stressful because now you don't have to just worry about the show and being entertained, but now you have to entertain people. Mm-hmm. And it's a lot more stressful than you think. The guys that work at CCW from top to bottom, production, security, everybody, top to bottom, they do so much and they work so hard. So it's stressful, but it's also incredibly rewarding because when people have a good show and they have fun, it's the best feeling in the world. Yeah.
Fair enough. Okay, so we answered Caleb Carter's first question about...
First night ring announcing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He didn't want to let you know you're his favorite CCW talent.
Oh, I appreciate that, except I know it's a joke. I won't say what the joke is. Caleb knows. I don't think... I was going to say I'm nobody's favorite CCW talent, but that's not true. I have people that... I've literally seen people in stores, on the street, who come up to me and say, "You're Mr. 100. My kids love you." I have one guy that comes into the store with his daughter, and I think she's like 7 or 8. And after the last thing where I got hurt, he had to bring her in to show her I was okay because I was like her favorite part of the show. And for a guy that doesn't really wrestle, I just go out and run my mouth. That is incredibly humbling. So thank you, Caleb. I know you're lying, but thank you.
Caleb Carter from the Four Sides Podcast.
Check him out on Spotify.
That's right.
And other
favorite podcast platforms, and at Four Sides Podcast on Facebook.
Good guy. Real good guy. He does our posters. Caleb's a sweetheart.
I don't know about the hair, but...
No one can have hair like us.
Oh, that's true. I need to get mine shaved. It's looking a little rough right now.
Mine's starting to look a little shaggy, but that's how I like it.
So, there's a couple questions left on this list here, and I'm not exactly sure how I want to do it. So, I want to wrap up the wrestling. Well, we're going to put the wrestling part on pause because these other two questions, this may get us somewhere.
Oh,
But
right. Okay.
your good, close, personal friend and great supporter of the podcast and always delivers with the questions, Derek Boxdorfer, has a few questions for you.
Oh, good. Derek.
Shout out to Derek for supporting the podcast.
I finally put him on Podzilla, and he's so fucking funny. I stand by that. The reason he's on the show occasionally now is because he's so funny. He's so deadpan funny. Like, oh my god, he makes me laugh so much. So I love Derek.
So, Derek wants to know, why did you start Podzilla in 1985? And this kind of was like, we've talked so much about wrestling and everything. Like, I just want to kind of touch on this a little bit here. Like, besides the wrestling, like, you do have a podcasting network.
Yeah, so originally so I used to do a blog called Blogzilla 1985. And the reason I did that blog, I went to school for journalism. I had a sports journalist scholarship in college. I was set to work for a paper in Carbondale before I instead chose to fly out to Pennsylvania to be with my then girlfriend, Lindsay. And then I lost that job because I chose love over work. And don't do that, kids, if you're listening. But journalism is my passion. Obviously, if you listen to the shows, you know I love talking about politics. I love talking about, events, stuff like that. So I did the blogs of the 1985 because I really hate mainstream media. Mm-hmm. I've always hated mainstream media. Both sides. Fox News, CNN, all that. Because mainstream media is just trying to sell you things. They sell advertisements and ad space. So they will put whatever sensationalized topic on that it takes to get you to click and watch and stuff like that. Killer bees, President Trump's a murderer, Black Lives Matter protests, whatever it is. They're just exploiting you. So I didn't want to do mainstream media anymore. I didn't want to do that journalism, but I still wanted to do journalism. So I started Blogzilla 1985 to talk about the topics I wanted to talk about. Well, it turns out that nobody reads blogs anymore. So I had to go into the digital age. I went to Buffalo Wild Wings when it was still over by Hastings. And I met Zach Price there. You know, Zach used to be a part of the show and used to be a part of CCW. He knows Josh, I think, Otis.
Yeah, I think he does.
Anyway, I met him there. And ironically enough, I met him and his wife. And then across from him was my good friend Jordan and his girlfriend, Allie. Because they dated before we dated. And Zach was drunk. And he was like, you should start a podcast. And I said, I'll never start a podcast. That's ridiculous. But then I talked to Hunter, and I was like, maybe I should start a podcast. We went down to Real Rock Studios, and we recorded the first podcast. It was a WrestleMania preview. Myself, Hunter, Louie, and Zach. And I just got the bug. I was like, this is a good platform for me to express myself. So the original Podzilla shows were just what I was interested in. We talked about body image issues. We talked about ghosts. Whatever came to my mind. There was no set show pattern. It was just whatever topic I could think of at the time. And eventually I started bringing more people in. We got a bigger cast. My friend Jesse had a podcast called Penta Nerd. He shut it down and he joined us. And then 5 years later, we've covered, I think, just about everything. So it's my love of journalism, Derek, that made me want to do Podzilla. And it's my disillusion with the world that makes me want to stop doing Podzilla.
What was your favorite episode
of Podzilla?
Yeah.
I have a couple. There was an episode, the first episode Allie ever did. She came on, because she used to be a producer, quote unquote, on the show, where she would help with because we were dating and she wanted to spend more time with me. Mm-hmm. So she would come and run the levels on the mics and stuff like that, and she would help out. We would always joke, the producer, Allie. The first episode she was actually on, if I remember correctly, we used to have a show on there called Mr. 100 Presents. And I would just get people that I thought were interesting, and I'd bring them on, and I'd talk to them like you're doing right now. It was very much like this. And I had just gone to Allie's church for the first time. So she came on, and we talked about church, because I don't go to church. I'm not a religious person, so it was kind of an experience for me. That was one of my favorite episodes. We did one on Pokemon conspiracies, of all things. That was one of my favorite episodes. We did one on the story of Michelle Carter, who was the girl who basically almost cyberbullied her boyfriend into killing himself. And that was one of my favorite episodes because it was a topic that I really liked talking about. There's a bunch of I Want to Believes that have been great episodes. Most recently, I did an episode with Dolph Ziggler where he came on and we talked, me and him and Allie, we talked about comedy. And that was a fantastic episode. We talked about comedians and the TV shows. That's just one of my favorite episodes. Now I'll tell you my least favorite episode is the 50th episode. The 50th episode was a goddamn motherfucking train wreck that no one should ever listen to, ever.
Was that the episode that Jason and I was on?
No, that episode was fine. No, this episode, it was me, Zach, and Lindsay, and I think Tanner, probably. I don't know. But it was poorly done. The audio was terrible. It was just painful to listen to. And then more recently, during COVID, we started this new show we nicknamed Horse Time. And there was an episode where we had no script. We had nothing to talk about. It was just me, I think Dalton, Hunter, and maybe Cody and Tanner. And we just sat there for an hour bullshitting. It was not entertaining. And when we stopped doing it, we all went, boy, that was a mistake. It's fun to listen to now, but oh, I hated it so much. And when I do a bad show, I hate myself. I hate myself for a week. I take things very hard. That could be taken out of context, I guess. It's fine.
Why don't you give it hard too? Then
I don't. It's ever since I started taking antidepressants, it's like medium soft.
So, one of his other questions here. He has a list. Don't worry.
Oh, goody.
What's one thing you'd change about mainstream wrestling?
The biggest thing that I would do is I would stop scripting promos. I think scripting promos is the worst thing to happen to wrestling in a long, long time because it's so sterile and boring. You go back and you watch 80s wrestling when you got, even guys like The Ultimate Warrior, Hulk Hogan, when they're rambling, it's not what they're saying that's important. It's how they say it. They draw you in with their personality. A lot of wrestlers now, when they have scripted promos, it's just they don't have their personality into it. It's so manufactured.
So I'm split on this. I think there should be a level, like you pass, like you can do it. If you're not, then you have to be pulled down to scripted. Because as this new advising role of the Fight Underground, the Anna Fight Underground, their debut show is October 15th at the skating rink in Anna. Make sure you get your tickets.
Hey, isn't New Jack on that show?
New Jack's on that show. He'll be taking on Madman Pondo.
Don't want to miss that. And that's in Illinois.
So blood, every match is fans bring the weapons. So
Jesus Christ.
Bring your decor.
Someone asked me, "Hey, are you gonna start working Anna, Fight Underground?" And I said, "Nope, probably not," because I don't work other shows. Mm-hmm. I've worked 3 shows in my entire life, 4 shows. I worked Stride as an announcer. I worked Austin's promotion in Arkansas as a manager once, and I got to powerbomb Dalton, so that was a lot of fun. And I worked the very first American Hostile show with Austin as his manager. I don't like working other shows. I'm not in this business to I'm never going to be a top tier talent in AEW or WWE. I like Cape. I like our fans. That's where my passion is. So,
Well, hey.
But, however, if anyone were to ask me, I would consider it.
So, hey, if you want to come out and see the violence, October 15th in Anna, Illinois, hit up the Facebook page. You can get tickets there, or you can get tickets at fightundergroundanna.square.site. You can get your tickets there. We got tickets going for $10, and you will have options to also get a meet and greet with New Jack and Nick Gage.
That's awesome. That's a damn good show, guys.
That is, especially considering, Nick Gage is in the building. I know Nick Gage has some certain things up his sleeve, a certain surprise for that night. So that show's going to be full of a lot of surprises that I am legally not allowed to talk about just quite yet. So maybe in the future we'll have some of the higher-ups on here from Fight Underground Anna.
And we'll see how legal it comes out to be when the show's over.
Right.
Because you never know.
Hey, I will tell you this. That show is put on by a legal company and is insured.
That's a step up for New Jack.
Hey, it was insured before they may or may not know who New Jack is, the insurance company.
Oh, good, good. Well, let's stop talking about that.
Right. So, with that being said, what would you change in CCW history?
For CCW history?
Yeah.
Or CCW now?
All time.
All time? What would I change about CCW? I always said this, and it got me in a lot of trouble before I worked with them. So I don't know how they feel about it now. But
you're hierarchy there, so I think it's however you feel about it.
It technically, I think I'm ranked pretty high, but at the same time, CCW is to me and always will be Jason's baby. So I would never try to disrespect anything he's ever accomplished because I respect Jason a lot. But one thing that I always had a problem with was some of the storytelling, and this was worse back in the old days. But you had top matches like Brandon Barbed Wire and who he was feuding with, and they always had a good story with it. But then you'd have guys come in like Cody Wilson or the Cody Wilson, Hollis. These guys that were super talented, Davey Vega, and they didn't have stories. And I remember I would go to shows and I'm like, and I would say this on Pro Wrestling Unscripted a lot because we covered CCW at the time. Like, why are they fighting? Why is this person fighting this person? Why is this person doing this person? And then Ace and Dalton would say stuff like, well, if you follow them on Facebook, you'll see them post. Like, no, you shouldn't have to follow someone on Facebook to understand why they're fighting somebody. So I always felt like the storytelling, like the matches were great, the booking was good, but the storylines could use more polish. There needed to be reasons. And that got a lot better as time went on. So it's not something I have a real problem with anymore. I guess if I had anything that I would change about it now, I would lean it in a more mature direction. Mm-hmm. Not straight up death matches or anything like that, I don't think, but
what I suggested 2 years ago before the door went down
was to be more mature.
Yeah.
Like, I think some of my favorite angles in CCW history are the ones that are kind of grounded in reality and built on real anger and violence. When we started House 100 that night, we beat down Billy Hills, we beat down Jackson Crowley, we spray painted them. It was crowd was going nuts. They hated it. They're cussing at us. It was a real vibe, right? And then the next show, nothing. The next show, they didn't follow up on it at all. I just went out and it was back to cookie cutter. You're a heel, do heel things. Mm-hmm. I don't think I know I overthink things. So when I think of like me as a heel manager, there was stuff I would pitch to Jason that I wanted to do that he would shoot down because he's like, all you have to do is go out there and just mouth off to the crowd, grab someone's leg when they go by, and I would always say, but can't we do more? Like, can't we advance it in a way? So I would go a little bit more extreme with it. I would make it a little more violent. I would pump it up to PG-13. But what sells? That's the important thing. What sells?
I can tell you what's not selling now.
What's that?
Well, apparently what's going on now.
I blame COVID for some of it. I thought so. The January.
Hold on. So here's when I get on my tangent here. So people say, okay, so COVID gets the door down, right? So and I know the numbers for the past couple shows. You look at that, and then you go down to Trenton, Tennessee, TIWF.
Shout out to Sarge.
Yeah, shout out to Sarge O'Reilly. Who they're putting 200, 300 people in the
building. Who I have kissed, by the way. I have kissed, yeah.
They're putting 250 people in the building every Saturday.
Yeah.
So I don't necessarily know how well it's the COVID.
Well, I say the COVID's part of it because anywhere could be a problem. There are people that might not want to go. And maybe people in Tennessee think differently than people up here. They certainly smell differently. Yeah. But I also blame it on sometimes it feels a little stagnant. I don't feel like we push some of the angles well enough. Part of that is because we really don't have the avenue to do it. I don't know if that makes any sense. Like, we don't have a TV show anymore. Getting wrestlers to put something together to post on like Facebook can sometimes be a pain in the ass. Sometimes wrestlers don't show up to the show, so angles that you did have, you have to scrap and do over again. There's a lot of things that go into it. But I think that obviously there is room for improvement.
One of my biggest things, I think a show every month is a bad idea. I think it should be a show every 2 months.
I feel like it's how you do it. It's in how you do it. If you can put on a product that people will go, I need to be there for it, then I don't think it's a problem. But I think that sometimes we don't put that product on. Sometimes whether it's because we just didn't think of it at the time or extenuating. Because I know there have been plenty of times where Jason has told me, okay, here's what we're doing on the next show. And it's this great idea. And I'm like, that's great. I think that's going to sell. That's crazy. And then a couple days later, he's like, okay, well, this person backed out. This person backed out. Now I've seen Jason stress himself to the point that like he's come in to talk to me a couple days before the show. I forget what show it was. But half the people couldn't make it. Mm-hmm. And he's trying to rewrite it at the last second. And like, again, I know it's easy for me to sit here and say, well, there's stuff we could be doing differently, but like I've never booked the show, so I don't know how much stress he is under to try to put on a good show. I think part of the problem is Jason does it by himself. I always thought Jason should share some of that responsibility, not because he's not good at it, but because I know he gets burned out. A person can only do so much by himself before you need help. That's what I did with the podcast. That's why I brought other people on, because like I'm gonna burn myself out if I'm trying to do this on my own. So yeah, I always felt like storylines could be different, more serious, more mature.
But you got to be willing to take that help. And I know personally, I've seen that offer go through, and I know it ended up World War III.
There have been times I've pitched things to Jason, not just for myself, but for other people. And some stuff he listens to, some stuff he doesn't, usually doesn't. But also, my ideas sometimes are a little out there. You know, they're a little against the grain. And there is a fear that if you do something differently, you could turn off the fans that we've got. Mm-hmm. You know, the people that come there every week, every month, they want to see Jackson, they want to see Brandon, they want to see the stuff that we're doing. If you do it differently, they may reject it, and then we lose that audience. And if we don't bring in a new audience, we could just be done. So I think you have to strike a balance.
I mean, it's a gamble. I mean,
it's always a gamble.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, one of the things like I've talked to about with certain talents, like, you know, outside of this, is like kind of looking at how things are. One of the things that CCW's really dropped off is promotion in general. Like, yeah. You know.
So part of that
is y'all kicked me to the curb.
Well,
your Twitter died, your Instagram died when you kicked me to the curb. Y'all stopped the CCW Live or the Facebook thing.
Well, the CCW Live, I mean, I know
the YouTube channel kind of died out.
The 7 people that join CCW Live week to week, I'm sure they're very disappointed by that. And the YouTube, so YouTube and now the webpage and promotion and almost everything short of paying for things and booking is pretty much done by me. Mm-hmm. And that was never my job. It was never my responsibility to do all of these things. I took these things on because I wanted to help. And the most depressing thing, and this isn't me coming down on anybody else, because when I'm good, I can do those things with my eyes closed. Promotion, you know, the YouTube channel, all that. My problem is that I lost my passion. Mm-hmm. When, you know, the start of the year, I was so burned out on all this stuff because not only was I doing in the ring stuff, but I was also doing backstage stuff. I was doing video stuff. I was doing a lot. And once Allie left me, my passion for everything died. Thank God it happened during COVID because everything died. The problem is now that we're back doing stuff, I haven't been doing what I should be doing. I haven't been doing it as well because I'm still fighting with myself and struggling to get my mentality back to where it needs to be.
So one of the biggest things is with something like that, you can't take it all on yourself. You're a corporate man now.
Well, I'm a corporate man in the sense that that's what they tell me, but
you're a corporate. Where's your team at?
The team is literally, as far as I know, owner, Jason, me. That's it.
You have a crew that runs with you, that says they have an interest, they want to see CCW grow, stuff like that. If I was you, my advice is I would start pushing things out to them. I know Dalton took over the training.
Yeah.
And one of the first things that I told him once he took it over, and I remind him this every month, I said, now you understand why if you talk to me of a show day, I was always hostile and angry. Because dealing with this, you know, you're dealing now with the wrestling and the school, the training.
Right.
Now, you add on, like for me, like I had the school, then dealing with the promotion, ticket sales, hoping to God the show don't fail.
Right.
And like you see it, like the wrestling is part aspect. Like it's always fun the night. Like it's fun the night to see the product pay off.
Oh yeah. But once you get to the show, it's like a different feel. Yeah.
But you just got to make sure that you've got your team working on it.
So the biggest issue is the guys that own it now, and a lot of us, other than Jason, none of us have any experience.
Yeah.
I've been doing this for a couple of years now, and I've learned from Jason, I've learned from you, I've learned from everybody. And I tried to study everyone, you know, because I wanted to get better. But the guys that own it aren't wrestling fans. They are fans of CCW. They want it to succeed. They want it to succeed real bad. Right. That's the good part. But there's a lot of mistakes, you know, and I see Jason trying to work within the system to get it out as best he can. And it's one of those things that I feel like we need to have a meeting and say, okay, here is everyone's designated job, because I don't think anyone knows what their job is. The only person that knows what their job is Jason. He books the show. He does a good job of it. But there are times where Jason will call me and he'll say, hey, is person there? because it's a couple days before the show and we still don't have the license because he hasn't paid for it.
Right.
And it's like, are you kidding me? Or at the last show, we have, Becky Brown from Cakes Reanimated comes in, does a fantastic job with catering. No one ever collected money for the last show. And I'll go to the person and be like, this is ridiculous. Why did you not do this? Well, I haven't had time to speak to her yet. Bullshit. You've had plenty of time. This is money that we're not making. This is money we might not make at all now.
Right.
Because you never collected it. No one's talked to her about the next show. She can't do the next show. Had I not reached out to her and asked her this, we might not have known until the day of, and then who's going to cater? What are we going to do, buy bags of chips and sodas and bring them in there? So the problem is that it's a small organization with a couple of people that want to do their best, but there's no structure. And everyone keeps telling me, well, Shannon, you're corporate now. You can do this. But like, my thought is, can I? I don't own the company, and I don't book the company. So what do you want me to do exactly?
You're going to have, honestly, you're going to start building a team. As far as that goes, as far as the collection thing, my thing was always after intermission, walk the block, any vendors, collect, and then go to the kitchen and collect.
Like I said, we need a team.
Yeah.
One of the most difficult things for me is to share responsibility. And I think that's one thing Jason and I really have in common, is we're both the same in that we both want to do everything ourselves because we know we can trust us. So whenever you have people that you rely on and depend on, they could end up screwing you over. But I'll never screw myself over, at least not on purpose. So I try to do everything that I can, and I try to do it myself. And when I'm good, I'm good. When I'm kind of like Mauro Ranallo, when I'm depressed, I don't want to get out of bed in the morning sometimes. I don't want to deal with it. And I do it as best I can. And it would definitely help if I just said, hey, can you help me with this? Mm-hmm. But I'm stubborn. And at the same time, I don't feel like it's my job to do it. No one ever gave me a title. No one ever said, this is your job now. It was just, this person owns it. You know this person. And no one else is going to do it, so I guess you better.
Right.
And I hate that. I wonder sometimes what would happen to CCW if I left. A lot of people have said, if you leave CCW, it could go under just because you do so much. I don't believe that. I think as long as Jason's there booking and we have the talent, I think that's all it would take to keep it going. But it would definitely be harder.
I think you undersell what you do. I think that if you really look, like, I can look outside looking in because I've been there.
Mm.
So like I know. So like you look at like you said, the CCW live, and this may be for those of y'all listening. This may be exposing too much of the fourth wall here.
Uh-oh.
But you'd be surprised, like that little show, like you said, the 6 or 7 people that tune into it. You could see like it may not sell 100 tickets after it happens. But, it wouldn't be surprised you sell 1, 2, 3 tickets.
Right. Well, and there's lots of little things I think we could do better, like selling tickets at gaming grounds.
Yeah.
People always ask about them. We don't sell them. Doing promotions with other places, like food, go here, get a discount, buy a CCW ticket, something like that. There's always something we can do. It's just, my God, I put so much on myself with Podzilla, with gaming grounds, with my personal life, which is a dumpster fire. I put so much on myself, and I feel guilty asking for help. I'm my own worst enemy.
But like I said, man, this is where you got to realize it's like you got to step away from your normality and be like, okay, this is business. It takes a team to run a successful business, and this is what needs to happen.
Right.
I still think CCW Live would have been more successful had you not kicked me off of it after one episode.
CCW Live, so people keep asking me, and if there are CCW fans listening that are still listening 6 hours later,
right?
And they're wondering, hey, where is CCW Live? Is it coming back? Probably not. At least not in the way it used to be, because CCW Live, a big part of CCW, the heart and soul of CCW for a long time, was the Pro Wrestling Unscripted crew. Myself, Ali Abear, Dalton Anthony, and Asa Gray. Because we did so much. We backstage, we ran interviews, we helped wrestlers, whatever we needed to do, we did it. We did CCW Live. We didn't get paid for any of it. We were just doing it because we love CCW and wanted to help. It's not the same crew anymore. Because Dalton is now a legitimate wrestler who...
What?
No, I'll give it to him. Dude works his ass off at it.
He does.
He's a legitimate wrestler. He's doing really well. I'm doing whatever I'm doing, whether it's managing or production, whatever it needs to be. Asa is doing commentary, and all that stuff. Allie's gone. And I hate that. The biggest thing that I regret about she and I breaking up, other than the fact that, I did love her, was that she was an integral part of it. Mm-hmm. And now that she's gone, it's just not the same anymore. The foursome is now 3. We're all kind of broken and battered and beaten after all this time. So it's not the same. And could CCW Live come back without Allie? I don't think so. If it's just Asa, he does a great job, but like Asa is also his own worst enemy. He tears himself apart every time he does anything.
We had that talk because my ideal was the thing that keeps it from not. Oh, you said stagnant. To me, if you do anything like that, you need a face and a heel.
Yeah, but you have to. But you have to. There has to be limits. You were some kind of maniacal heel that I think it's important to balance where you get along. You can't just like shit on each other constantly. And I think the problem with that show especially was that Asa went into it thinking, okay, I'm going to play the serious role, and then Lee's going to come on and he's going to heal it. But you were so good and you were so heelish. And Asa was trying to stay within his perimeter of, okay, I'm the mainstream, I'm the neutral, I'm the balance. I can't go back at him, is what Asa thought. And I think that created an overpowering dynamic. Now, if you had two guys that were on the same level, whereas if Asa let himself be Asa and you two jawed at each other, it could be very entertaining. I think it was just miscommunication in that you were going all out and Asa was reserved. And that created a problem. You know what I mean?
Because to me, it's like when you do it, like I look at it, it's like you said about the 80s. You know, Gorilla Monsoon and Bobby the Brain Heat. Like, that's my ideal. Is like, okay, this is what we need.
Right.
To, get the people going. Like, get the people to follow it.
Right.
Because, like, if you go back, you can look. It is one of the most watched episodes that we did. Now, it could be the fact that, like, the people that watched it for mine are like, oh, my God, they're going to put this guy on a live internet stream and let him talk. This is going to end poorly.
Yeah. Which it did. But just for different reasons.
Hey, I enjoyed the episode. It's probably my favorite CCW Live episode there was.
We did a lot of good episodes. Like, CCW Live, I think it got even more fun right before we stopped. Right before Allie and I broke up. I know you're going to hear me talk about Allie and I breaking up a lot. It's because I do a lot in CCW and in everywhere else. And I asked Allie to be a part of that because she was really good at what she did. Not because we dated, because she was good. So she was a big part of everything that we accomplished. So I have to talk about her because she was a big part of it. When we stopped caring and stopped trying to be professional and we just decided to have fun, I think those were the best episodes. And I wish you could have been a part of that time period because we tried to present an image originally, and in the later months or year or whatever, we just stopped caring and we just wanted to make ourselves laugh. That was when it was much better.
One thing I do want to ask you about before we get back to his list of questions here.
Jesus Christ, we still on that?
Yeah. What do you think of this current angle with Cash taking the belt?
I think it's fine. I want to see how it ends. If Cash takes the belt, if he does something heinous to Otis, gives Jackson a reason to chase after him and go after the belt and get revenge for his brother, I think it could be fantastic. If you let Cash be Cash, because I've seen Cash, he's incredible, and Jackson's incredible. Let those two go at it with a good story. I think it's money, but and I don't know. It could go really well, or it could. I don't know. I can't tell you right now. I think the potential's there.
So here's what I see with this. Like I said, this all goes back to the Super Show.
Yeah.
And what I was told was going to happen, and then what happened, which I discussed with you, was two different things.
Right.
But I do feel like this. I feel like this is too soon rehash of what GCW did last year with Ricky Shane Page and Nick Gage taking the belt. My second problem with this is, and I understand like the business aspect of this. So, Cash left with the belt. Nobody really went after Cash to get the belt back. Instead, everybody went to the merch table to take pictures with fans.
Yeah.
Where, like,
Big Lee, these aren't decisions that are made by me.
I think that's one of the things that's really bothered me. And it's like,
What bothers me about it is I have a legitimate fear that Brandon might win the title at the next show.
Yeah.
And I love Brandon, but like that would be stupid. In my opinion. Maybe I'm wrong. Who am I? If Brandon won the title. If Brandon beats Jackson for the title that Jackson doesn't even currently physically have because Cash has it, like I feel like I almost feel like the Brandon storyline's rushed a little bit. Of he just joined back with the Pinnacle, and now they're putting him in the title match. Also, I don't understand why Jeff Odell is still GM when he's leader of the Pinnacle. There's a lot of things that
I brought that up with his episode of the podcast when I was having a discussion with him and Cash about Cash and why they nobody stopped him.
Yeah, I can't answer that because whenever the show's actually on, my role is almost specifically to help with production, with any kind of stage movement. Me and Billy are basically setting on headphones for things to happen. Stuff like that I have no control over. Not my job. I will say that Jeff Odell has been incredibly kind to me. I just want to say that because when I started as manager especially, he gave me so many tips of how to get the crowd going, how to have them eating out of your hand, the way to move, to speak, because Jeff's been doing this for so long and he's brilliant at it. So Jeff helped me a lot. Just want to say that. I feel like you should give credit where credit's due.
Yeah, I mean, Jeff's a great talent. Like I said, the whole GM thing still with him still being on still seems kind of, and then the whole, like I said, the whole thing with Cash and the belt is just kind of, I don't know, like I feel like if that was going to be the case, there's a pathway to go. Like, I don't know how to say it the right way, but
say it the wrong way.
Well, the wrong way would be, maybe it's holding on to it not being that last swan song. So maybe, what if it's like, okay, to me, like, there could be a whole angles building up to these shows of, like, attempts to get the belt back. Somebody, like, comes and is like, okay, hey, you were out there with Cash. You have, everyone knows you're a close personal friend to Cash. You have a relationship, a history with CCW. Can you get the belt back? And then, what if I had the belt and then I refuse to give it back?
Well, I think there's...
Or Cash keeps, we show up together and we do something to where, like, they think they get the belt back and they don't. And then what does happen if Brandon wins on the 26th?
The only thing I can figure is that you probably have Brandon versus Jackson versus Cash for the title, which I'd love to see that match personally. That'd be a great match.
But then you get to, but see, my problem with that is like, you're now also dragging out the fact of, like, Cash gets screwed over each time. And I feel like that's what would happen in a triple threat. Something would happen.
Where he would lose the championship. Yeah,
How often can Cash continue to get screwed over?
I don't have an answer to that. It would be like me asking, okay, who's in the main event? Jackson and Brandon. Who's been in the main event for the past 4 years? Jackson and Brandon. It's... I guess if people like it, then who am I to tell them that it's wrong? Again, I'm not the booker. Jason has been doing this a lot longer than me, and he's run successful promotions. So this is one of those moments where I'm like, I will say, well, who the fuck am I? Whatever he wants me to do, I'm there to help him. I'm his backup. Until someone tells me differently when it comes to these things, I'm the backup. Have you ever had Jason on this show, by the way?
Yeah.
Have you?
Yeah, we supposed
Did you grill him?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Just want to make sure.
Actually, we started we was going to start a series of history of CCW because it was going to, like, culminate with the end of selling the company.
I often wonder what Jason thinks of me. I really do.
He probably has a higher opinion of you than he does of me.
After
this comes out, he'll probably have a much higher opinion of you than me.
Oh no, I think I've been way too critical. But I've never been one to, like, shy away from my feelings. But I've often wondered what Jason really thinks about me. There was a time when Jason invited, I think it was like Dalton and Asa, to go to St. Louis with him to pick up a wrestler. I forget who it was. And he didn't invite me. And I got so pissed off at it. And I remember telling Allie I think it was personal. Because Jason and I have disagreed so many times. The Dalton and Asa, especially back then, were pretty good at towing the corporate line, the company line. And I was always the one that said what I thought, even if it got me in trouble. So
I know that feeling.
Yeah. So I always wondered if Jason actually likes me or if he just thinks he needs me. And I like to think he likes me because Jason and I have we've had conversations that weren't involved with CCW Ball. When Allie and I broke up, he called me many, many times to check on me just to make sure I was doing okay. So I'd like to think so. But I also, my biggest fear, and my biggest fear I've always had, is that I'm not good at this. That the only reason I've been put in the position that I was put in is because I did editing for free, because I did promotion for free, that I did all these things, and they wanted to keep me around doing that. So they threw me a bone. But the hopeful, optimistic side of me likes to think that Jason thinks I am talented, and that he puts me out there because he thinks I'm talented.
I'm a pretty honest person. I God forsake, people know that whether I should tell the truth or not. And I'll shoot straight with you. I think it's a thing you earned your keep with this. You earned your way to it, because I know originally that was the thing, was y'all were starting to do this. And they wanted to keep y'all doing this because they didn't, the goal was not to lose the promotion, the free promotion.
Right.
Even though it was taking a hit on being lost on those front row seats being sold, it's making it up on the back end. So that's how it really kept, moving there. But over time, you earned, especially you earned your keep. I know it's a terrible way to say it, but that's the best way I can think of saying it.
Well, that's what I wanted. I wanted to earn my keep.
Yeah, you earned your keep there, and as I've never heard him say anything really bad about you. I think he cares about you. He considers you a friend.
I also consider him a friend. I know he and I have butted heads on a lot of things. We don't agree on everything politically, as well as other stuff. But like I said, my biggest fear is just I don't want to be a phony. I don't want to be a fraud. I don't want to be walking around CCW like I'm important, when in reality I was, it was just he's kind of a necessary evil. I don't think he would put me in the position he put me in for so long if it was that. But I also
can't get rid of you, corporate man.
I also have no. He could get rid of me. He could just tell me to go home. I'd go home. My level of depression at this point, sometimes he could tell me to jump off a bridge and I would immediately drive over. God,
push him off.
That's bleak. No, I would never hurt Jason. Jason has something to live for, more than me.
So,
lovely wife, lovely kids.
Who wins in a fight? Chuck Tingle?
Son of a bitch.
Is it Stanley Barber?
Stanley Barber?
Randy Smith and Cool Cat.
I
don't know who any of these four things are.
Definitely. All right, so Tingle is an author that we found out about who writes stories that always have a title like The Time I Cloned My Butt and then was raped by my butt. It's the word, it's a lot of it's gay erotic fiction, and I found out about it. And what people know that listen to Podzilla 1985 know is that I'll take something and run it into the ground. I will beat the horse dead. So I talked about that on the show many times and irritated everybody. Cool Cat is the creation of a guy named Derek Savage. It is an awful kids education movie that is so bad it's amazing. Mm-hmm. And I also ran that into the ground. More interesting, though, is Stanley Barber and Randy Smith. Asa got a message a long time ago about two wrestlers. It was someone, I guess a fan, had messaged him, and he forgot about it. And then a couple of months ago, we were doing Pro Wrestling and Scripted, and he's like, oh, I forgot. I got this message years ago from this fan, and he read the message to us, and it was about a wrestler from CCW. I won't say his name. I'll tell you after the show.
Oh, you can just say it.
Oh. What the hell is that?
I have no idea.
I think my phone just...
I think it was your phone.
That's insane. But this message basically... And it's on one of our episodes. It's the opening. Derek actually reads it. But the message was basically this wrestler... And we changed the names to Stanley Barber and Randy Smith. Are rapists. They're gay. That's on Holy Bible. You have to listen to the spiel because it's incredibly funny. And, Derek's just to self-promote. So good job, Derek. But it's Cool Cat. Cool Cat
for the win.
Yeah.
Cool Cat gets the W... and hits the pay window.
My favorite thing is that now you have officially had Cool Cat mentioned on Big Lee's World. So, spreading the gospel, Derek. I want my check.
Look at that. So, I got 2 questions left here.
Good. I need to go home.
Hey, you knew what you signed up for.
No, I didn't. I didn't know we did 3 hours. This is like my RF video for my shoot interview.
Right.
Except I'm not getting paid for it and no one's buying it.
Hey, this may get a whole 2 listens. Oh. Shout out to anybody that's made it this far.
Yeah, this is the longest podcast I've ever done by far.
Really?
Yeah, but I've never done a podcast that was about me. Uh-huh. So I'm still invested.
I think it's Michelle Minton.
Yeah.
Wants to know wants to know if you'll get Revenge on the Pinnacle. So I want to start this out this really isn't the podcast for
storyline?
Yeah, this is a storyline podcast, which I'm sure if you've listened to it this long, you've kind of figured this out by now, hopefully. Right. But at the same point, like,
I can address it from both sides.
okay,
So if you're asking me as the character, I would say that anyone that knows Mr. 100 knows that he's a very, very vengeful person. And he's also a very cold and calculating person. So when the time is right, he absolutely will make a return and get revenge. Now, as behind the scenes kind of thing, the original idea that is pitched to me, and I don't want to give away too many things, we've always wanted to do House 100 versus the Pinnacle, like this war storyline. I remember Caleb making signs a year ago that said a war is coming, and we never got to do it. So now we have the chance. Now, will it happen? I don't know. That was pitched to me. The idea was that I would disappear because I wanted to take some time off from the ring anyway, just because I'm burned out. You know, I do so much. I'm burned out. And Jason was like, okay, I'll write you off and you can just help backstage. I'm like, cool. So the idea was I would stay away for a couple of months, come back as a face. And in the meantime, I wanted to train because I wanted to transition to wrestler. That's what I want to do. Part-time. I don't want to do like full-time. I don't want to do the Dalton thing and go to different places. Right. I just wanted to work at CCW. But I don't know if that's still the plan. So I don't know how much of it rests on me and if I want to come back, because there's a part of me that doesn't, that I just want to be done with it. My legacy is there. 2 years as the main bad guy. For a guy that was just a fan in the front row, I think that's pretty goddamn good. But if inspiration strikes and everybody wants it to happen, I would love to do House 100 versus Pinnacle, and I have already got ideas. You know, whether Jason listens to them or not, I don't know. But I've got ideas.
Well, I mean, kind of looking at that here, we've talked about this, privately, and we might as well, if it's private, we'll bring it up on the podcast because that's just how we do things here at Big Lee's World.
Of course.
Is it what's left of House 100? I mean, it seems like pretty well everybody.
Dalton and Slammer.
I mean, you got Dalton and Slammer. I mean, you got the LA Hustlers, but they're too busy running around Tennessee and Arkansas.
Well, so originally,
trying to chase some little girls down there instead of.
If COVID hadn't hit, the Hustlers were going to turn on me at Super Show.
Uh-huh.
They were going to turn and go off with Showtime, and that was going to be they were going to form a new group. But they haven't been back since for whatever reason. I don't know. That's something I don't know. So I guess technically,
I'll tell you about that one off the air.
We technically still have the Hustlers. Austin Lane is still in the group. Otis technically, I guess, would still be in the group, and then Dalton and Slammer, Micah Knight. I think that's it. Pretty sure that's it. Yeah. So we still got some people. Now the people that were pitched to me though, because again, I don't want to give away too much just because I don't want to ruin any storylines. Because I don't want to cost us money if that's true. But there was a team.
Let's be honest. It doesn't change like 10 times since then.
That's true. So I'll just say what the original plan was. As far as I knew, the original plan was going to be me, Dalton, Slammer, and what I was told originally, Joey O'Reilly and Sarge O'Reilly versus Jeff Odell, Hollis, Brandon, Billy, and then maybe Blaster, maybe Damone. We would get a Pinnacle group back together, and that would be the rest of the year. Would be House 100 versus Pinnacle going at it, and I was pretty excited about that. But yeah, mostly because I would love to work with Joey and Sarge. One of my favorite things about Sarge is that when I was a ring announcer, I don't think Sarge realized I was just a ring announcer, because there would be times Sarge would be in the ring and I'd be in there announcing whatever, and he would say, Shannon, you book this. You get me versus him in a cage. And I would go, Sarge, I'm not the booker. I can't make these decisions. I'm just the ring announcer. Sarge never grasped that concept, I don't think. Sarge's taking a lot of bumps to the head, though.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I mean, you think there's a spot for Sarge? If you think he'll decide to come back to CCW? It seems like he did one show and then decided to...
Man, I don't know with Sarge.
Stay in Trenton.
I think the thing with Sarge is that because everyone does love him so much, genuinely loves him, and I know Jason loves him, I think Sarge will always have a spot in CCW. Because as far as I know, Sarge has never, burned us. He's never, said, I'm not coming back or anything like that. He's just, I'm going to stay here, I'm going to work here. Mm-hmm. And it's a respect thing because Sarge has been doing this for so long. He's a legend. So I think Sarge will always have a spot in CCW, absolutely. As far as I'm concerned.
Well, if you need some guys to fill House 100...
You give me Nick Gage. And,
God,
Nick Gage and House 100, that'd be awesome.
I kind of know a couple people that,
As long as it's not New Jack.
So, here's the thing. To me, this is one of the biggest dropped opportunities. I think with CCW. And it goes kind of tags in fashion. I think that right now, it's really evident because he's one of the biggest indie stars going right now. And it's one of the rejects, John Wayne Murdoch and Reed Bentley. They're out of, they'd come in reasonable, stuff like that. And I think for those guys to come in and work an angle, or a tag angle with, like my idea was always them versus the Hustlers.
Mm-hmm.
But if you could get guys like that, and it goes like you said, more of a mature style. Like, you need those guys that like are known to be
mature and angry and violent.
Yeah, like they're not gonna come in here and cut up people with light tubes.
Right.
But they can, they can do the wrestling and they can be.
They give it an edge.
Yeah.
I think, and I'd be fine with that. But if
same with and that was before they broke up, the Hooligans.
Mm-hmm.
But I know Pert backstage with bookers and how they don't like one another. So.
The backstage drama.
Yeah.
The fun stuff. No matter who comes in for House 100, the only people that I would want to keep, no matter what, is Dalton and Slammer, because Dalton is legit one of my best friends, and storyline wise, we've been through a lot. I think
he turned on him. Can you trust that he won't, get that receipt?
It's wrestling, so sure. And I think that's a good point, though. You could have that will he or won't he dynamic of will Dalton turn? Will Dalton, is he devoted to Shannon? Because Dalton came out there to try to save me. But when the tough gets good, when the going gets tough and Jeff Odell makes him an offer, you could portray that as, oh, I bought one of your guys, and everyone assumes it's Dalton, and then it could be Slammer or something like that. I think that would be fantastic. But I think Dalton and Slammer, I would want them to be a part of it just because they are House 100. And then pair them with other people for the more, well, these guys have been doing it longer, so they have the big credibility. I think it gives a rub to Dalton and Slammer. Mm-hmm. It makes everyone look good. So that's what I would do.
Who do you think should be the CCW GM?
Me. Like, legitimately, if it weren't me wanting to go back and actually do, like, wrestling, I think the most obvious choice is me. They fired Jeff Odell because he's corrupt. Who do you bring in to fight the corrupt Jeff Odell? The guy that he tried to destroy. The guy who's already a proven leader. I think Shannon Young makes the most sense. But do I want to be GM? No. I want to be on the front lines. So if it's not me, honestly, I know we probably couldn't get him, but Sarge. I think Sarge would be a great GM. If we could get Lane Austin back, Lane would be fantastic. Osby. Because, if Osby can't wrestle anymore, have Osby come back as GM. He was a great GM. Hunter. I think Double H would be a great GM again. There's so many possibilities that you could do. It's just, in what direction do you want to go? If Billy can't wrestle, for whatever reason, Billy would be a great GM. He's going to have someone that can command the crowd, someone that they respect. And all the names I mentioned, I think, would get that respect. So those would be my top picks. Or if he ever wanted to finally make that jump into it, Jason. I think if Jason came in and said, okay, things have got... Imagine House 100 and Pinnacle are going at it so hard. It's violent. It's raw. It's unlike anything CCW's ever seen. It's a legitimate war. Who do you bring in to try to create order? The guy that created CCW. Jason would come in and say, look, I'm stepping in. I got to keep this safe because you're ruining my company. You're ruining this vision that I created, so I'm going to keep you both in line. I think he would be great for it, but I don't think Jason would ever do it. He's never wanted that attention,
So, last big question on the list here.
Yes, I guess I'm single. I don't want to be, but it's not really my choice. So, if the ladies want to get a hold of me, hurry up and move quick because I'm hoping that won't last long. Was that the question?
No, it goes a little bit deeper than that.
I've been told I'm very handsome. I think my mom said that.
Oh, okay.
God rest her soul.
Fair enough. Caleb Carr from Four Sides Podcast. I've saved his question for the last because I want to get your reaction to this.
Oh, God. He's setting up, too. He's setting up.
I got to get a drink of the Dr. Pepper for this one.
I ran out of grape nos like 5 hours ago, so my throat is dry as hell.
So, what's your thoughts on the G Crew?
Son of a bitch. I knew that question was coming, too, and I forgot about it.
Okay, this part is kind of weird at this instance because our recording device actually recorded so long it actually died. So if this audio sounds kind of chopped at this point, we apologize. But yeah, our equipment kind of ran out of batteries here. I believe it's because the air conditioner's still not kicked on. It's like kicked off and hasn't kicked back on since.
It's warm, but I also ramble.
So do I. But nonetheless, we were asking about your thoughts on the G Crew.
Yes, and I don't know how much we got on there, where we lost it, but my thoughts on the G Crew, I'll say it one more time. Love them. Passionate fans, really good. But again, my advice to anyone that wants to be a part of this and they want to get in the face of wrestlers or talk shit online or whatever is be good at it, or else you're going to get destroyed. Big Nasty learned that when he went up against Van Horn, and Van Horn obliterated him. I would hate to see the G Crew get eviscerated by Tennessee guys or Cape guys or whoever.
Well, I mean, he tried to go against Jeff Odell, and
not a good idea.
Yeah, it wasn't his brightest moment.
There's a lot of fans out there who feel the need to open their mouths about some of the talent in wrestling that really shouldn't, and it sometimes it crosses a line from, I'm in on it and I want to rib and stuff like that, to I'm going to legitimately try to talk shit to these guys, and most of the time you're just going to get your fucking head knocked off.
Right.
And if, God forbid, you touch one of us, you touch us all, because it would be like ants on a fucking plate of food. So I love them.
So I will say this, and kind of wrap this session up here, but I do know, being in the front office of the Anna Fight Underground, I know they will be at the Anna Fight Underground on the 15th of October in Anna, Illinois, at the skating rink. For
New Jack versus Madman Pondo.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, how do you think they're going to handle, because this is going to be a different environment than, TIWF and CCW.
Please listen to my advice when I tell you, do not get in New Jack or Madman Pondo's face. Again, this is Illinois. Illinois ain't got no rules.
That's true.
If New Jack wants to go across there and assault you with a knife, you might think, well, that's impossible. New Jack's done it before. New Jack stabbed people in the ring and got away with it. So, be respectful. Not everyone is in on the joke. You know what I mean?
And with somebody like New Jack, you probably don't want to joke with.
You do not. If I ever met New Jack, I would 100% shake his hand and be as respectful as possible. Because you should be, first off. This business, you need to be respectful to everyone you meet. But at the same time, if you're going to be a disrespectful shit to somebody, not New Jack. Dalton, maybe.
Yes.
Definitely not New Jack.
I still think if CCW runs an Illinois show, which almost happened.
CCW After Dark.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but everyone was too big of pussies to actually do it.
I'd do it.
But,
I'd do it.
Allie
told me not to. She was like, I told her your idea, and she's like, no, you're not doing that. But Allie ain't around no more, so...
I still like the idea of New Jack versus Dalton.
I agree.
Madman Pondo versus Dalton.
Yes. Big Lee versus Dalton.
Right.
Everybody versus Dalton. Yeah. Which is the Dalton hour. Yeah.
Right. The 20 versus 1, handicap match. Fans bring the weapons.
Yeah.
Barbed wire.
Against Dalton. Sadie versus Dalton.
Right.
I'm sure she'd love a shot at it. Yeah.
Well, like I said, hopefully all goes well with this and we get the other recording in back and we can kind of paste it together.
Oh, I hope so. Because if we lost 3.5 hours of audio, I thought it was good. So,
yeah, I mean, it's definitely been one of my favorite podcasts here. I want to thank you for being a guest on here. Where can everybody find you at?
Nowhere right now because I'm off the show. But normally, or if you want to catch up on old episodes, Podzilla1985.com. You can also check us out on Spotify, pretty much anywhere else. We do lots of shows per week. We have a whole network, like you said. So there's something for everybody. Wrestling, politics. We even do like a D&D show now. I mean, whatever you want. We got it over at Podzilla1985.com. The original Cape Girardeau podcast. When we started it, then everyone started to do podcasts. You came along. My God, I thought Big Lee's World was a joke for the longest time because you started it like 2 years ago.
Uh-huh.
And I waited and waited. And I'm like, is he ever going to release it? When you finally did come out with it, I was so happy. I was so happy for you.
Well, yeah, because I mean, at that point, like, it wasn't really for sure if it was going to be just a full-fledged podcast, if it was going to be like a secondary promotion.
Right.
Because it was like, there was talks of, like, with the Illinois show being... They didn't want to do, the other members of management didn't want to do CCW, any kind of affiliation with it, because they were too afraid it would, quote unquote, hurt the brand.
Right, because the family friendly.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, things happen with the current management over in Illinois at those buildings, so that kind of kept us from really doing that, or trying to get like a secondary or like a spot show set up.
Right.
And then I kind of had it to where I was like, okay, I'm going to finally start the podcast. And I was like, okay, how do I start a podcast? I was waiting for the invitation to join the Podzilla family.
I didn't know. I didn't know. I would have been interested in that.
And then I was like, Well, I guess I'm not going to get an invite to join the Podzilla family, so I guess I'm going to have to go out and build a Big Leagues World Network.
I don't know if you're being serious or not, because like,
oh, I'm dead serious.
I would have loved to have something like this on there, talk about music and your wealth of experience and the stuff you've done. I would love to hear more about that. So I feel like it's a lost opportunity. Then my dream though is that at some point we'll just gobble up all the other podcasts. Mm-hmm. So because Podzilla 1985, we have a huge listener base. Legitimately, I don't say that just to brag. We have a huge listener base all over the world, and we have a lot of fans. And I think the more content we can give them, like quality content, the better. Now I don't know if I'm going to go back to Podzilla 1985 is a big thing. And it's not because I don't enjoy doing the show. I love the show. But I get bored of things, and I want to try new projects. And I've been doing this for over 5 years at this point, and I built it up, and I feel like I've done everything I can do. So I leave it to the next generation of people to do it. I'm taking a little time off to get my head straight, because I never took time off after the breakup, and I should have. So that's what I'm doing now, just so I can, make sure I'm good. And I will hopefully be back at some point soon. Hopefully with better news than I bring now. So,
well, like I said, I appreciate you being a guest on here.
Thank you.
It's been a long time coming. Finally glad we got this taken care of.
Hope we didn't fuck it up.
Yeah, I keep waiting. What's scary is it just shows the battery icon now, and it's not kicked back on yet, so I was hoping to kind of have an update here at the end of it.
Oh, no, I want to leave before you find out, because if it failed, I at least want to be home where I can drink.
Another NOS.
Yes.
But like I said, I appreciate you coming on here. You got anything else you want to plug, promote? I know you got the big CCW show coming up September 26th at the AC Bronze Arena. Tickets are on sale at capewrestling.com.
Absolutely. It's probably our last show of the year, just due to COVID, and then we'll start up again next year. It's going to be a good show. I'm pretty excited about it. I'm sad about it, too, because I feel like we're rushed this year just because of COVID. Our storylines have been rushed. We've had to try to put things together last minute, try to figure out what the hell we're doing. I'm looking forward to next year when things get back to normal again. I'm very much so. Otherwise, I would like to once again promote that I think I'm single right now. So if
I just want to keep waiting for you to plug where they can find you at.
You can find me at Gaming Grounds most of the time. You can find me on Twitter. I think it's PZ85's Mr. 100 or PZ85 Mr. 100, probably. I'm also on Instagram, but I haven't updated in forever, and I suck at Twitter. Here's my thing, Lee. I want to tell you something. I don't self-promote.
I mean, you didn't even promote Facebook.
What's that?
You didn't even promote Facebook.
I don't like attention. I know that sounds weird. I don't like to promote. I don't like to sell things. I don't like to make money. Everything that I do because I have a passion for it. And the moment it gets to a point where it's like, well, now you got to plug it. It's like, well, then I don't want to do it anymore. Like, I don't know what it is with me. So if you're trying to find me, just Podzilla1985.com. You can get everything from there. Trust me. Otherwise, if you pretend I'm Waldo, if you can find me, then you've earned it.
But you can find him September 26th
at
the AC Bronze Arena
for Best of the Best.
CCW Best of the Best. Tickets.
Well, actually, no, you won't find me. I won't be on the show. I'll be there somewhere. Again,
right.
Like, where's Waldo? Yeah, where's Shannon?
Right.
Yeah.
You're like, hey, I brought my Tinder application.
I'm not on Tinder. I'm not on...
Yet.
I'm not on... No. After this one, if this one doesn't work out, which it doesn't look like it's going to, I'm taking a serious hiatus from dating. I've not been single in 15 years. It turns out dating's a lot harder than I thought it was. And I really like this girl, so if this doesn't work out, I'm going to need to recuperate. Unless you're just that awesome. But let's be honest, you're probably not.
Oh, that's fair.
Yeah.
Hey, I mean, we got some high-quality people that listen to the show.
Well, then give them my number, damn. Quit hating.
But, he said, he said, if you want to check out CCW, this could be your last time for the rest of 2020.
That's right.
I have an idea about that. I'm going to pitch to him off the air.
Well, we had an idea, too, about starting up a virtual CCW league with using, like, one of the WWE games where we would create the arenas, and we could maybe get some of the CCW guys to play, and then the fans could create their own characters, and we could have, like, actual belts, and it's a way for the fans to be involved with CCW, to get in the ring and fight for titles and all that stuff. It's in the planning stages, but something to keep your ear out for.
Yeah. But like I said, also, I'm going to pitch this idea to
Also
him
pitch
off
the idea
air,
to me, yeah.
because I pitched it to someone else in his management team, and they looked at me like I'm crazy.
Oh, I can't wait to hear it then.
But I
Because
think
there's only like one other guy.
yeah.
So,
So, once again, thanks everybody for listening. Make sure you check out any episodes you missed at bigleaguesworld.com or your favorite podcast platform.
There you go.
Make sure to check us out at Big Leagues World on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. If you got any questions, comments, concerns, requests, make sure you shoot me an email at bigleaguesworld@gmail.com. Once again, Shannon, thanks for being a guest on here. I appreciate it. Thanks to everybody for listening. Much love. I appreciate the support. And as always, 2 scoops of whoop.
There it
Whoop,
is.
whoop.